When we first started the show, I really thought we were doing a show about building cars and motorcycles for people. It evolved into a show about people and their story. It really brought challenges.
Danny Koker, better known to fans as the Count, built an empire out of his passion for classic cars, motorcycles, and custom builds. As the star of Counting Cars, he quickly became one of the most recognizable personalities on the History Channel. His wild style, deep knowledge of automobiles, and larger-than-life personality made the series a hit with millions of viewers worldwide. But behind the flashy paint jobs, roaring engines, and roaring laughter of his Las Vegas garage, not everything was smooth sailing. Running a successful shop like Count's Customs isn't just about cars, it's about people. And over the years, Danny dealt with employees who, despite their talent, caused more trouble than they were worth. Some clashed with management. Others let egos get in the way, and a few made mistakes that nearly cost the business dearly. For a man like Danny, who takes pride in his reputation, his team, and his craft, those situations weren't just frustrating, they were unforgettable. Now, at long last, Danny Koker has revealed the 5 employees who gave him the most grief during his journey. The revelations are surprising, sometimes shocking, and shed new light on the behind-the-scenes drama of Counting Cars. From trust issues and personality conflicts to outright disasters in the shop, these stories paint a very different picture than what viewers saw on television. For Danny, these experiences weren't just about calling out bad behavior, they were hard-learned lessons about loyalty, leadership, and what it really takes to keep a business running in the spotlight of reality TV. Danny Koker built Count's Customs on loyalty, creativity, and a shared passion for automobiles. To him, the garage wasn't just a business, it was a family. But every family has its weak links, and the first on his list of the 5 worst employees is someone who betrayed that trust in a way that shook the foundation of the shop. In the early years of Counting Cars, Danny welcomed a talented mechanic who seemed to have the perfect mix of skills and personality. He was charming on camera, knew his way around an engine, and brought fresh energy to the team. Fans loved seeing him work, and for a while it looked like he was destined to become one of the show's breakout stars. But what the cameras didn't capture at first was a different side, an attitude that clashed with Danny's core values. As Count's Customs grew in popularity, so did the temptations that came with being on television. Fame, money, and recognition can change people, and this employee started making decisions that put his own interests ahead of the shop. He began cutting corners on projects, ignoring Danny's direct instructions, and in some cases, misrepresenting the work to customers. For a perfectionist like Danny, this was unforgivable. The breaking point came when financial discrepancies began to appear. Danny prides himself on running a clean, honest business. But suddenly, invoices weren't matching up. Supplies were disappearing, and the books looked suspicious. After a quiet investigation, Danny discovered that this employee had been siphoning money from the shop, using Count's Customs' reputation and resources for personal gain. The revelation devastated Danny. He wasn't just angry about the money. He felt betrayed on a personal level. He had given this person an opportunity, a platform, and a chance to shine, only to have his trust thrown back in his face. For someone like Danny, who values loyalty above all else, this was one of the hardest blows he had ever taken. When the truth came out, Danny had no choice but to fire him. It wasn't an easy decision, especially since the employee had become familiar to viewers of Counting Cars. But Danny knew that if he didn't act, the entire reputation of his shop and his personal integrity would be at risk. The fallout was dramatic. Fans were shocked when the employee suddenly disappeared from the show, and rumors swirled online about what really happened. Danny, a man known for keeping his private matters close to the chest, rarely spoke about it in public. But those close to him understood that it was about more than money. It was about trust, honor, and protecting the values that made Count's Customs what it was. In hindsight, Danny admitted that the experience taught him a valuable lesson. No matter how talented someone might be, skills mean nothing without character. A shop like Count's Customs thrives on teamwork, respect, and a shared vision. When even one person breaks that bond, the entire operation suffers. This employee may have been skilled, but he will forever be remembered as one of Danny's biggest disappointments. A reminder that not everyone who smiles in front of the camera is loyal behind the scenes. While betrayal is one of the worst things Danny Koker has ever had to deal with, there's another type of problem that can be just as destructive: ego. Running a custom car shop is a team effort, but when one person starts believing they're bigger than the brand, conflict is inevitable. That's exactly what happened with the second employee Danny couldn't stand working with. This particular staff member came into Count's Customs with undeniable skill. He had a sharp eye for design, a bold personality, and a flair that made him stand out on screen. Viewers at home were drawn to his confidence and larger-than-life attitude. At first, Danny welcomed it. After all, part of the charm of counting cars was the unique characters who made the shop feel alive. But over time, the employee's confidence turned into arrogance, and what had once been entertaining started to disrupt the entire team. The first warning signs came during high-profile builds. Danny is a hands-on leader who respects creativity but expects his directions to be followed. Yet this employee began disregarding his instructions, insisting that his vision was superior. On several occasions, he altered projects without permission, creating tension not only with Danny but also with customers who felt their requests had been ignored. For Danny, who prides himself on delivering exactly what clients want, this was unacceptable. Behind the scenes, things grew even more strained. Other employees began complaining that this individual hogged credit for group projects, downplayed the efforts of others, and created a toxic environment in the shop. Danny noticed that morale dipped whenever this person was around. Teamwork, something that had always been the backbone of Count's Customs, was starting to crumble. The breaking point came during a build for a high-profile client. Danny had carefully mapped out the design, making sure every detail matched the customer's wishes. But the employee, determined to prove his own genius, made drastic changes at the last minute. When the finished car was unveiled, the client was furious. It wasn't what they had paid for. Danny was forced to step in, apologize, and absorb the cost of fixing the project. It was an embarrassing situation, and one that nearly damaged the shop's reputation. For Danny, the incident was the final straw. He had built Count's Customs on respect, for the craft, for the customers, and for each other. Allowing one person's ego to overshadow that mission was dangerous. While the employee brought talent and personality to the table, it wasn't enough to outweigh the chaos. Danny had to make the difficult decision to let him go. When the employee's departure became public, fans were surprised. Many had enjoyed his on-screen presence, mistaking arrogance for charisma. But those inside the shop knew the truth. His constant need for attention and control had made life unbearable for everyone else. Danny later reflected that working with him was like trying to steer a car with two people fighting for the wheel. No matter how skilled he was, there could only be one leader at Count's Customs, and that leader was Danny Koker. The experience served as another harsh reminder that talent alone isn't enough. In Danny's world, humility, teamwork, and respect mean just as much as technical ability. No car, no build, and no show is worth sacrificing the harmony of the team. In the end, this employee's story became a cautionary tale. For Danny, it underscored the importance of surrounding himself with people who understand that Count's Customs is bigger than any one personality. And for fans, it revealed a truth about reality. TV, sometimes the drama you see on camera, doesn't come close to the battles happening behind the scenes. Not every problem Danny Koker faced at Count's Customs came from betrayal or unchecked ego. Sometimes the issue was far simpler, but just as frustrating: laziness. In a shop where deadlines are tight, reputations are on the line, and every detail matters, there's no room for someone who doesn't give their all. Unfortunately, one employee on Danny's list became notorious for doing the bare minimum, and it nearly derailed several major projects. When this worker first joined the team, Danny had high hopes. He seemed eager to learn, had a basic understanding of the craft, and promised to be a reliable addition to the garage. At first, everything looked fine. He showed up on time, completed small assignments, and blended into the group. But as weeks turned into months, cracks began to show. Unlike the rest of the crew, who often put in long hours fueled by passion, this employee seemed to lack motivation. Tasks that should have taken an afternoon stretched into days. Simple responsibilities like prepping a car for paint or organizing parts turned into excuses and delays. Other workers had to constantly pick up the slack, and resentment began to build. Danny, a patient leader by nature, gave him chance after chance. He offered guidance, encouragement, and even reassigned him to different roles to see if he would improve. But nothing seemed to stick. Instead of stepping up, the employee began hiding behind others' efforts, letting the more driven team members cover for him while he coasted. The situation escalated when the shop was preparing for a big reveal on counting cars. Danny had promised a client a dramatic transformation, and the deadline was looming. Every member of the team was working late nights, sacrificing sleep to make sure the car was ready on time. But this employee was nowhere to be found. He left early, took extended breaks, and seemed unaffected by the pressure everyone else was under. When Danny confronted him, the excuses poured out. He was tired. He didn't feel well. The task was harder than he thought. But Danny had heard it all before. For him, excuses don't fix cars, and they don't keep customers happy. After the reveal, which barely came together thanks to the rest of the crew's dedication, Danny realized this employee wasn't just unmotivated, he was a liability. The decision to let him go wasn't easy. Danny hates giving up on people, especially when he's invested time into trying to help them succeed. But at Counts Customs, one person's lack of effort can drag down an entire project. The shop's reputation depends on every car being finished with the highest level of care, and Danny wasn't willing to risk that for someone unwilling to put in the work. When fans noticed the employee's quiet disappearance from the show, speculation ran wild. Some assumed he left on good terms. Others guessed at behind-the-scenes drama. The truth, however, was far simpler. He just didn't have the drive required to keep up in such a demanding environment. For Danny, the lesson was clear. Talent and loyalty are important, but so is work ethic. Counts Customs isn't just about flashy cars and TV cameras. It's a business built on sweat, passion, and commitment. Without those qualities, no one lasts long. This employee's story may not have been as explosive as others, but in some ways it was even more frustrating. Betrayal and arrogance are dramatic. Laziness is quiet, creeping, and corrosive. And for Danny Koker, it was one more reminder that building the perfect team is about more than skill. It's about finding Pew for Danny Koker. Running Counts Customs has always been about passion, loyalty, and trust. Every member of the shop plays a role in building not just incredible cars, but also the reputation of a business that's become world famous. But one of the hardest lessons Danny learned was that not everyone is capable of working in that kind of environment. The fourth employee on his list was someone who didn't just make mistakes. He thrived on drama, and it nearly tore the shop apart from the inside. At first, this employee seemed like a good fit. He had a decent skill set, got along with the crew during the hiring process, and even charmed fans during his brief appearances on the show. But as time went on, it became clear that he brought more problems than solutions. Instead of focusing on cars, he spent most of his energy stirring up conflict with coworkers. Behind the scenes, he became known for gossiping, pitting employees against each other, and spreading rumors about Danny's leadership decisions. What might have seemed like small squabbles at first quickly escalated into full-blown tension. Projects slowed down because team members couldn't work side by side without arguments breaking out. For Danny, who prided himself on building a family atmosphere, this behavior was toxic. The drama didn't stop with coworkers. It spilled over into client interactions. On one occasion, the employee openly contradicted Danny in front of a customer, undermining his authority. On another, he exaggerated his role in a project, taking credit for work he hadn't done. To Danny, this wasn't just unprofessional, it was disrespectful to the entire team who had put in countless hours of effort. The situation reached a breaking point when the employee's dishonesty crossed into dangerous territory. During a high-stakes build, he assured Danny that certain parts were ordered and tasks completed, when in reality he had ignored the assignment. By the time the truth came out, Deadlines were already jeopardized. The rest of the team had to scramble to make up for his failures, working around the clock to save the project. For Danny, that was the final straw. He realized this wasn't just about laziness or lack of skill. This employee actively thrived on chaos. He seemed to enjoy the attention that came from conflict, even if it meant hurting the reputation of Count's Customs. Danny knew he had to act quickly before the entire culture of his shop was poisoned beyond repair. Letting him go wasn't just about removing one worker, it was about restoring balance. Once he was gone, the shop's energy shifted almost immediately. The tension faded, teamwork returned, and morale improved. It was proof that sometimes a single toxic personality can weigh heavier than a dozen small mistakes. Fans noticed his absence from counting cars, but never got the full explanation. Danny, being the professional that he is, didn't air the details publicly, but those close to him knew the truth. Count's Customs could survive mistakes, accidents, even financial setbacks, but it couldn't survive constant dishonesty and drama. For Danny, this employee's story served as a lasting reminder. In a business built on passion and precision, attitude matters just as much as ability. One person's negative energy can stall creativity, break trust, and ruin the sense of family that keeps the shop strong. And while Danny rarely looks back once a decision is made, this particular experience reinforced his belief that surrounding himself with the right people is the only way to protect both his team and his dream. People who love the work as much as he does.